news, we will be covering a rare genetic disorder called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, also known as DMD, which is an X-linked recessive muscle wasting disorder that affects about 1 in 5,000 males. Some symptoms that these patients may experience are frequent falls during early childhood and progressive muscle degeneration, which may lead to a loss of ambulation over time, cardiomyopathy, pulmonary dysfunction, and cognitive impairment that may lead to learning disorders. Generally, those diagnosed with DMD experience a life expectancy of about 28 years old. Next, to talk to us about the current treatments and psychological impacts of the disease, we will be dialing in Sandra Messiha.
Thanks, Angela. So we know that currently there isn't necessarily a cure for DMD, but we do have various treatment options that we can implement that can help alleviate the symptoms of the disease. For example, one of our main pharmacological options is using corticosteroid therapy, and that comes in forms of drugs like prednisone or deflazacort, which have anti-inflammatory properties. Another way to treat DMD is to treat the pulmonary dysfunction associated with the disease, and we can do that by devices like positive pressure ventilation, assistive cough devices, and even tracheostomies. Finally, we can also treat the cardiomyopathy associated with DMD with pharmaceuticals like diuretics or ACE inhibitors. We also have a few non-pharmacological options to treat DMD, and that comes in forms like physical therapy or occupational therapy, which significantly help to prolong ambulation in patients with DMD.
Thanks, Sandra. That was really insightful. To get a more realistic perspective of the challenges faced by families caring for a child with DMD, we interviewed a member of our community, a single mother whose youngest son is diagnosed with DMD. Here's a recording of the interview from earlier today. Joining us, we have Miss Kathy Phillips. Thanks for meeting with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a proud single mother of 2 beautiful boys. My youngest son, Matthew, is 12 years old now and was diagnosed with DMD when he was about 4 years old, when we noticed that he was having frequent falls and that he struggled to be as active as other kids his age. My older son, Daniel, is 17 years old and he's incredibly helpful with caring for his brother.
Wow, it's really great that he got the diagnosis at a relatively young age. How do you think caring for a child with DMD has impacted your life?
I mean, it's definitely been a challenging experience. It's always difficult watching your child suffer through such a devastating and debilitating illness, and even witnessing the physical and mental toll that it takes on him. It's been quite challenging also for me to try to balance being the sole source of income for our household while providing around-the-clock care for him. However, it does help that my older son, Daniel, is always eager and willing to help share the caretaking responsibilities.
I can definitely see how it's really psychologically taxing for Matthew to struggle with this illness and also be unable to do the same activities that he sees his friends doing. It also makes a lot of sense that you and Daniel also face psychological stress as a result of watching someone you love endure this illness and still have to make numerous sacrifices in order to provide adequate care to Matthew. How do you think your older son Daniel has been impacted by this?
But my older son Daniel helps a lot with keeping track of Matthew's doctor's appointments and at-home treatments. I can definitely see how this takes a toll on him, despite the fact that he's always eager to care for his brother. I mean, for any teenager, socializing and cultivating hobbies are integral parts of development. And Daniel has a lot more limitations in terms of free time when compared to other kids his age, because of his unique role caring for his younger brother who has DMD.
I can't imagine how hard that must be for Daniel witnessing his friends his age being carefree of such responsibilities. Do you feel like you've been equipped with enough appropriate resources to navigate these challenges?
Although I've been directed to multiple valuable resources regarding Matthew's medical treatment, I don't really feel as though I was given adequate resources to navigate the unique psychological stressors that my sons and I face as a result of Matthew's diagnosis.
There's definitely an increasing trend towards placing a greater emphasis on the psychosocial component of individuals with DMD as well as their families. On tonight's Community Health News segment, we will be discussing accessible resources that can help families navigate these stressors and provide hope and support for families just like yours. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience with us. We will be having pediatric physician Sandra Messiha, joining us again to elaborate on the available resources.
Yeah, so it is very important to consider the psychological stress and that impact that it has on patients with DMD and their families, because a lot of times we can get caught up in strictly the medical side of things, and we tend to neglect the mental health component, which plays a huge role. That we know, we have a lot of evidence that psychological stress plays a role in disease outcomes, and mitigating that can actually help improve outcomes. We know that with DMD, there's various types of psychological impacts that happen. For example, we see increased incidence of anxiety and depression-related disorders. We also do see the development of autism and other learning disorders. We also know that these psychological hardships don't only affect the child with DMD, but they also tend to affect the family, because obviously it's very difficult, as we heard in the interview, that it's hard to see your family and someone that you love going through such a devastating illness and having to make tons of sacrifices in order to take care of them. So just to emphasize that it's not only important to mitigate the psychological stress of the individual with DMD, but also to manage the psychological stress of the family. For example, we have a lot of resources online in terms of support groups that help you be surrounded by people who are going through similar experiences and find strength in that. We have a website called the Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy website, which allows you to access nearby support groups and find other types of resources local to your area that can help you mitigate that stress and have some psychosocial support, which we know we have a lot of evidence to support that does improve health outcomes. One very valuable resource for families that have a child experiencing DMD is this website called Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. It's helpful because it has a lot of various resources that allow you to understand what Duchenne muscular dystrophy is in terms of what causes it, the genetic mutations, and even how the treatments that are currently out there work to treat DMD. And what I find very helpful about this resource is that it gives you a lot of simple graphics that helps families understand, and even the patient to understand, what causes their disease and how the treatments work. The website also has a lot of information about how you can create a guideline for taking care of a child with DMD. And what I really like about it is the fact that it gives you a lot of options for the families, and it doesn't just focus on the patient. It also has a lot of information about how can you become an advocate for the initiatives that they're currently posing, and even understanding the current research that's going on to kind of progress the available information that we have about the disease. And one of the most important resources on this website, I feel, is the fact that it allows you to find local support groups around you, which is, like we spoke about earlier, is very important to have psychosocial support in order to have the best possible outcome with this disease.
Thanks for providing some future directions and resources for families affected by DMD to feel a sense of hope and light at the end of the tunnel. Another major thank you to Kathy Phillips for sharing her personal insight. Thank you to the viewers for tuning in for today's segment of Community Health News.